Hitler's Final Will, The Truth About the Mysterious Fortune of the Nazi Empire. Part 1, Berlin, April 1945, The Thousand-Year Reich in a Sea of Fire. April 1945. Berlin, the capital of the Third Reich, was no longer a city. It was hell. The sky was covered in black smoke. Pillars of flame rose from flattened neighborhoods, and the artillery of the Soviet Red Army thundered like rolling storms. In the west, American and British forces were closing in. In the east, the Soviet Union was crushing every road. The empire Adolf Hitler once declared would last 1,000 years now had only a few days left. Deep underground, in a cramped concrete bunker, the Führerbunker, Hitler and his closest loyalists were living through the final moments of history. No more glorious parades, no more cries of Heil Hitler, only despair, collapse, and a question hanging in the air. What would remain after Hitler died? A strange ritual. Hitler marries on the day of doom, dawn, April 29, 1945. Amid bombs shaking the ground, Hitler gathered those closest to him. In a brief and bizarre ceremony, he married his longtime lover, Eva Braun. No wedding flowers, no guests, only a cold feeling, as if this was the final formality before stepping into death. After that, Hitler turned to his personal secretary and began to dictate the final will, not only to divide assets, but to shape a legacy, to control the story of himself even after death. Part 3, The Political Testament, The Final Curse. The document was divided into two parts. The first, the Political Testament, 5 pages long. It was nothing more than a final propaganda piece. Hitler continued blaming the Jews, claiming they were the cause of the war. He also punished those he considered traitors. Hermann Goering, Heinrich Himmler, expelled from the Nazi Party in his final moments. More importantly, Hitler still tried to sketch out a new government, as if the Reich could continue to exist, a desperate illusion. Part 4, The Personal Will, the final performance of a dictator. The second part was much shorter, only 3 pages, but it contained the most shocking detail. Here, Hitler described himself as a man who almost had no possessions. He wrote, "Everything I own, if it has any value, belongs to the party." Even the art collection he loved was declared not personal property. Hitler wanted the German people to believe he was a leader without wealth, a man who sacrificed everything for the nation. But hidden among those modest words was one suspicious detail. Hitler ordered that his sister Paula, his mother-in-law, his other relatives must be provided enough to live a modest middle-class life. But where would the money come from? The will did not say. Only one name was given full authority, Martin Bormann, the man who held Hitler's financial secrets. Part 5, Hitler dies and the will vanishes. 4 a.m., Hitler signed his name. A few hours later, he and Eva Braun committed suicide. 2 days later, Soviet soldiers broke into the bunker. The scene left behind, half-burned bodies, collapsed concrete, and no will. The most important document of the Third Reich vanished without a trace. The hunt began. 6. A shocking discovery in a POW camp. Summer 1945. In a prisoner of war camp in northern Germany, a British Jewish intelligence officer named Hickman Rosman was interrogating Nazi captives. A man in civilian clothing was arrested. He claimed to be a journalist. But something was not right. An officer pulled the shoulder padding from his coat. Inside, hidden papers. The entire room fell silent when they saw the signature, Adolf Hitler. It was the will. The prisoner confessed he was Heinz Lorenz, the press officer tasked with carrying the will out of the bunker. The will had been found, and the Allies valued Hitler's assets at only 200,000 Reichsmark, equivalent to less than 15,000 pounds. The official story was closed. Hitler died poor. But was it true? Part 7. The 1938 Will, a Financial Bomb. Many years later, in Munich, a historian discovered another document, the original will from 1938. Hitler wrote it at age 50, believing he would die soon, and this version was completely different. It clearly listed specific sums. Paula Hitler would receive 1,000 Reichsmark each month, converted today, equivalent to hundreds of thousands of pounds per year. The inheritance in the first year alone exceeded more than 1.2 million pounds in modern value. That proved Hitler had been a millionaire before the war. So where did the money come from? Part 8. Mein Kampf, the Führer's money printing machine. Hitler's greatest source of income came from the book, Mein Kampf. At first, it sold slowly, but after Hitler came to power, he turned it into a national obligation. Every newlywed couple received a copy. The state bought the book. Hitler collected royalties. At its peak, 1 million Reichsmark per year, equivalent to hundreds of millions of pounds today. Hitler grew rich from his own propaganda. Part 9. Tax evasion and a real estate empire. Hitler owed taxes of up to 400,000 Reichsmark, but once he became chancellor, he forced the authorities to erase his tax records. From then on, Hitler began buying a luxury apartment in Munich, a villa for Eva Braun, and the Berghof estate in the Alps. Berghof was expanded into a 30-room palace filled with priceless paintings. A dictator who had no possessions lived like a king. Part 10. The art treasure in an Austrian salt mine. Hitler dreamed of building the greatest museum in the world in Linz. He collected around 8,500 paintings. At the end of the war, the collection was hidden in the Altaussee salt mine in Austria. More than 12,000 works of art were stored deep inside 64 kilometers of tunnels. American forces recovered the treasure, valued at nearly £1 billion, but most of the cash was still missing. Part 11. The Swiss account, the greatest secret. The OSS, the predecessor of the CIA, discovered Swiss accounts holding up to 45 million Reichsmark. The manager was Max Amann, Hitler's closest financial advisor. Value today, hundreds of millions of pounds. But after the war, Amann died, taking the secret with him. The accounts became legend. Part 12. The Hitler family and the inheritance war. Paula Hitler sued to claim the assets. After 12 years, the Munich court ruled Paula was entitled to 2/3 of the inheritance. But only 4 months later, she died. No one knows where the true fortune went. Part 13. Swiss Law 2013, the final full stop. In 2013, Switzerland passed a law. Accounts inactive for 62 years would belong to the government. That means, if Hitler had money in Switzerland, it was legally confiscated. The hunt for millions ended in silence. Part 14. Alas, forge Hitler's image still makes money. Hitler died, but his image remained profitable. Mercedes cars auctioned for millions, personal items sold for unimaginable sums. Mein Kampf copyright expired in 2016, reprinted worldwide. Hitler left more than war. He left behind a toxic brand. Conclusion. The greatest lie. The 1945 will was a performance. Hitler wanted to die as a leader who sacrificed everything. But the truth, he was a millionaire. He owned real estate, he owned art, he had secret accounts. The will was not the truth. It was his final propaganda. And perhaps that was the greatest lie in the life of Adolf Hitler, and the will's disappearance was the very first clue. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you found it useful, don't forget to leave a comment and check out more videos on the channel to support it. Goodbye, and see you again in the next videos.